Hello, my name's Cliff Stevenson and I'm the Helpful Economist. Today we're looking at whether global economic systems are failing workers. 77% of workers globally are not engaged with their work, while only 23%, less than 1 in 4 people, feel engaged with their work. This is based on an extensive survey by Gallup across 125 countries. Now, to be engaged means that workers found their work meaningful and felt connected to their team, manager and employer. I recently was in Wales and visited the National Slate Museum, and there was a demonstration by a guy who'd been in the industry for 14 years, and he described some of the difficult conditions. This was not an easy job. But the one thing you could say about him, he was passionate about his work. For me, this was someone who was really engaged with his work. To be not engaged means being disconnected from the workplace and putting in minimum effort. Now, the situation was worse back in 2009 when only 12% of workers felt engaged with their work. So the percentage of engagement has almost doubled and reached a record high in 2022. The Gallup data shows that the majority of this increase has come about as a result of a reduction in the percentage of employees actively disengaged, as shown by the green line in this chart. Now, actively disengaged is a subset of people within the not engaged category. And these are people who disrupt the goals of the company and who are adopting harmful actions. So these trends do seem to be some good news, but overall I found it quite shocking but not surprising to see this level of disengagement that workers have with their work. Gallup also surveyed workers on stress, and they found that there'd been a very significant increase in those experiencing a lot of stress. And it's reached an all-time high in the past 2 years. 44% of workers felt stressed in 2021 and 2022. Now, stress isn't necessarily bad. If you're engaged with your work, part of the reason you might be engaged is that it demands a lot of you. So stress by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. But stress and disengagement are a really bad combination, I would say. And this suggests that generally global workers are not happy. The Gallup figures provide a breakdown by country of the level of employee engagement aggravated for the years 2020 to 2022. When we look at the top 20 countries with the highest level of employee engagement, they're not necessarily countries that we might expect. 4 of the top 20 countries are designated least developed countries, and the 2 highest countries are Mali and Senegal. The UK is in the bottom 10 countries with only 10% employee engagement. The lowest 2 countries are Italy and Japan with only 5%. Comparing the UK with the other G7 countries plus China, looking at the level of employees not engaged, we can see that the UK is roughly in the middle with Germany, but higher than the US and China in terms of workers not being engaged with their work. Looking at the split of those who aren't engaged in a kind of passive minimum effort kind of way, and those who are actively disengaged, i.e. they're disruptive or harmful to the business, we can see that the UK has the lowest level of active disengagement. But at the same time, the UK has the highest in the G7 for those who aren't engaged in that passive sense. So UK workers aren't necessarily as difficult or as active in their disengagement, but they're more quietly unhappy. So what's the impact of this worker unhappiness for the UK? The OECD figures show that the UK has one of the highest percentages of people reporting anxiety, which is a worrying trend. For depression, the figures show that the UK is lower down compared to other major OECD countries. However, NHS statistics show that there has been a significant increase in patients receiving antidepressants. Now, there could be many reasons for this, but high levels of dissatisfaction at work probably is one of the reasons. So in conclusion, for the UK, it is worrying that the UK has one of the highest levels of disengaged employees and stressed employees. and there's been a big increase in prescribing antidepressants. The UK has a productivity problem, and the best way to solve this is actually to re-engage workers, which I don't really hear this being discussed. We hear talk about efficiency and trying to squeeze more out of workers, but actually approaching it from this direction makes the problem worse. How artificial intelligence fits into all of this, I just don't know. It's quite possible that AI makes people feel less engaged with their work, but on the other hand, we probably at this stage can't conceptualize how AI is going to affect us in the workplace. I would say overall that capitalism is failing most people. Now, I'm not proposing a revolution in economic system, but I am proposing a revolution in mindset. A happier workforce will be a more productive workforce, and this is a win-win. I think we need to be focusing on reducing stress for people, particularly in relation to life outside work. And one possibility is simply to improve public services so that people's non-work life is easier. There are some exceptional employers who get really loyal workers who are really engaged with their work. And this is the challenge for employers globally, to find ways of re-engaging disaffected employees. I personally don't find it acceptable to continue with this level of worker dissatisfaction. I hope you found this information useful. My name's Cliff Stevenson. I'm the Helpful Economist. See you next time.